वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सार्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। त्वयैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमं शरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hari Bol, everybody. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam. I can't see who's all watching right now because this is a pre-recorded video. Right now it is 5:42 a.m. and at 7 a.m. I'm going to be traveling with my brother to Mayapur. So yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for joining. Pranams to all of you. So we're going to continue on with our reading. Let's do a quick recap of okay, I'm not gonna read all this. Thereafter, okay, now finally we come back to Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya. So, thereafter, at Shonak Rishi's request, Sutta Goswami described how the intelligent disciples of Srila Vyasadeva segregated and transmitted the Vedas. The transcendental sound vibration of Omkar first appeared in Brahma's heart. From that Omkar, Brahma created all the sounds. With these sounds, he produced the composite Vedas and taught them to his sons, the sages, who further propagated them. The parampara of the Vedas continues in all the 4 yugas by oral reception. At the end of each Dwapara Yuga, one second, let me just. At the end of each Dwapara Yuga, the Vedas are segregated into separate divisions by eminent sages for ensuring the accessibility by the people of diminishing intelligence and lifespans. In this Manvantar, the Supreme Lord appeared as Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas and divided the Vedas into 4 divisions and composed other literatures as well, which included the Puranas. He then gave each of these 4 samhitas to 4 of his disciples, the Rig Veda to Paila, Yajur Veda to Vaishampayan, Samaveda to Jaimini Rishi, Atharva Veda to Sumantu Rishi, and the Puranas to Romaharshan. These disciples further divided them and entrusted to their disciples for further transmission. One second, I just want to make sure that my face isn't cut off. I have my laptop on the windowsill. It's kind of cut off. Anyways, sorry about that. Okay. What the heck's going on? My mouse is not working. There. Oops. The great Puranas deal with 10 topics as described in Canto 2, while lesser Puranas may deal with 5. There are 18 major Puranas, namely Brahma, Padma, Vishnu, Shiva, Linga, Garuda, Narada, Bhagavat, what we're reading now, Agni, Skanda, Bhavishya, Brahma Vaivarta, Markandeya, Vamana, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, and Brahmanda Puranas. And what were the 10 topics that we heard about that are, what are the 10 topics that compose, let's just see this again. Let's just review. The 10 topics of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but not just Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, any Purana. It is, first, Sarga, the elemental creation. Then Visarga, the secondary creation. Sthanam, the planetary systems. 4, Poshanam, protection by the Lord. Uttaya, the creative impetus. 6, the Manvantar, the change of Manus. 7, Isha Anukata, the science of God. 8, Nirodha, the dissolution. 9, Mukti, liberation. And finally, 10, Ashray, the supreme shelter. Okay, so now we come to chapter 8, Markandeya meets the Lord. Okay, and just in case anybody is coming right now, the reason why I'm not greeting everybody is because this is a pre-recorded video. This isn't live right now. I'm on my way traveling to Mayapur, so I wasn't able to do this live. Okay, chapter 8, Markandeya meets the Lord. Shri Shonaka Uvacha Sutta Jiva Chiram Sadho Vadano Vadatang Vara Tamasya Pare Brahmatam Nrinam Tvam Paradarshana. Shonak said, O Sutta, may you live a long life. O saintly one, best of speakers, please continue speaking to us. Only you can show men wandering within the insurmountable samsara the way to cross beyond it. Sārārtha-darśinī by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. In the 8th chapter, Markandeya performs austerity and the Apsaras attempt to disturb his vows. The Markandeya Purana was mentioned in verse 24 of the previous chapter. That brought to Shaunak's mind the story of Markandeya. Thus he asks about this now. Tamasi means in sangsar. Ahushchirayusham rishim mrikandu tanayam jana ya kalpante hyurvarito yena grastam idam jagat sava asmat kulotpanna kalpesmin bhargavar shaba naivadhunapi bhutanam samplava kopi jayate eka evarnave bhramyam tadarša purusham kila vatapatra putetokam shayanam tvekamarbhutam eshana sangshayo bhuyan sutakoto halam yata tam naschindi mahayogin puraneshvapi sammata. Authorities say that Markandeya, the son of Mrikandu, was an exceptionally long-lived sage who was the only survivor at the end of Brahma's day when the entire universe was merged in a flood of annihilation. But the same Markandeya, the foremost descendant of Bhrigu, took birth in my own family during the current day of Brahma, and we have not yet seen any total annihilation in this day of Brahma. Also, it is well known that Markandeya, while wandering helplessly in the great ocean of annihilation, saw a wonderful personality, an infant boy lying alone within the fold of a banyan leaf. O Sutta, I am most bewildered and curious about this great sage Markandeya. O great yogi, you are accepted as the authority on all the Puranas. Therefore, kindly dispel my confusion. Sārārtha-darśinī. Urvarita means remaining. During the devastation by which the universes was swallowed up, he remained. That is well known. But there is no devastation now. That is my doubt. Otherwise, how could it happen that he saw a small boy on a banyan leaf during devastation? Because of this doubt, I have curiosity. Cut this doubt and curiosity. You are not only a great yogi, but are also acknowledged as an authority on the Puranas. Just making sure I'm using the right sound thing. Yes. Okay. Sutta uvacha prashnastvaya maharsheyam krito loka brahmapaha narayana kathayatra gita kalimalapaha. Sutta said, your question, which will remove everyone's illusion, has within it topics of Lord Narayan, which destroy the contamination of Kali Yuga. Praptidvi jati sanskaro Markandeya pitu kramat Chandangsya dharmena tapasvadhyaya samyuta Brihadvrata dharashanto jhatilo valkalambara Bibhratkamandalum dandam upavitam samekhalam Krishnajinam Shakshasutram Kushangscha Niyamardhaye Agnyarka Guru Vipratma Svarchayan Sadyayor Harim Sayam Prata Sagurave Vaiksham Ahritya Vagyata Pabhuje Gurvanu Gyata Sakrinno cher uposhita evam tapasvadhyaya paro varshanam paro varshanama ayutayutam aradhayan rishikesham jige mritum sudurjayam. Markandeya, after being purified by the second birth samskar performed for him by his father, studied the Vedic hymns and strictly observed the regulative principles. A lifelong celibate, he was peaceful and endowed with austerity and Vedic knowledge. With his matted hair, clothing made of bark, a water pot, staff, sacred thread, brahmachari belt, black deerskin, lotus seed prayer beads, and bundles of kusha grass, he regularly worshipped the Supreme Lord in 5 forms: the sacrificial fire, the sun, Guru, the Brahmanas, and Paramatma within his heart. He worshipped these 5 forms of the Lord at the sacred junctures of the day. Morning and evening, he would go about begging, and upon returning, he would present all the food he had collected to his Guru. Only when his Guru invited him would he silently take his 1 meal of the day. Otherwise, he would fast. Thus devoted to austerity and Vedic study, Markandeya worshipped the Supreme Master of the senses for 100 million years, and in this way he conquered unconquerable death. 100 million years is a long time. Brahma Brigur Bhavo Daksho Brahmaputrascha ye pare Nrideva Pitribhutani Tena san ativismita. Brahma, Bhrigu, Shiva, Prajapati Daksha, the great sons of Brahma, and many others among the human beings, devatas, pitris, and ghostly spirits, they were all astonished by Markandeya. Etam brihadvrata dharas tapasvadhyaya samyamai tadhyav adhokshajam yogi dvasta kleshantaratmana. In this way, maintaining rigid celibacy through penance, study of the Vedas, and self-discipline, the yogi meditated on the Lord with his mind free of all material attractions. Sārārtha-darśinī. He meditated with a mind freed of all kleshas, such as attachment. And then when it goes through, there are 5 kleshas: avidya, ignorance; asmita, right, ego; avidya, asmita; rag, attachment; dvesh, that's hatred; and abhinivesh, absorption in material existence. So the 5 types of klesh. So he meditated with the mind freed of all these types of klesh. Tasyaivam yunjataschittam mahayogena yogina vyatiyaya mahan kalo manvantara sharatmaka. While the yogi concentrated his mind by powerful yoga practice, the great expanse of 6 manvantaras passed. Etat purandaro gyatva saptamesmin kilantare tapo vishankito brahman arebhetar vighatanam. O Brahmana, during the reign of the 7th Manu, the current age, so during this current age, Indra came to know of Markandeya's austerities, and being fearful, he began to obstruct the sage's penance. Indra became fearful that by his austerity, he would take Indra's post. Gandharvapsarasa kaman vasanta malaya nilo munaye preshayam asa rajastoka mado tata. Indra sent Cupid, the Gandharvas, Apsaras, the season of spring, and the sandalwood-scented breeze from the Malaya hills, along with greed and intoxication personified. Whoa. Sārārtha-darśinī. He sent the son of passion and greed. He sent the son of passion, greed, and intoxication. Devaitad ashramam jagmur, himadre parshva uttare, pushpabhadra nadi yatra, chitrakya cha Śrīla vibho. O most powerful Shonak, they went to Markandeya's hermitage on the northern side of the Himalaya mountains near the Pushpabhadra river and Mount Chitra. Tad ashrama param punyam punyadruma latanchitam punyadvija kulakirnam punyamala jalashayam matta brahmara sangitam matta kokila kujitam matta barhi natattopam matta dvija kulakulam. Vayu pravishta adaya hemanirjhara shikharan sumanobhi parikshvakto vavav uttam bhayam smaran. It was a pure hermitage filled with pure trees and creepers, pure groups of brahmanas, and pure, clear lakes. Intoxicated bees were humming, intoxicated cuckoos were cooing, intoxicated peacocks were dancing, and intoxicated birds were flying everywhere. The breeze, embraced by flowers, holding drops of cool water from waterfalls, entering that place, agitating Cupid even, began to blow. That breeze began to blow. Udyaj Chandra Nishavaktra Pravala Stabakalibhi Gopadruma Lata Jalais Tatra Sit Kusumakara. Springtime, with a network of trees and creepers covered by clumps of flowers and sprouts, whose face was the rising moon at night, appeared in the hermitage. Sārārtha-darśinī. Spring had night as its face with a rising moon. The spring was endowed with a network of creepers and trees, which is protected by the rays of the moon. Spring was endowed with a network of creepers and trees, which protected the rays of the moon and lines of flower clumps. I'm going to stand up for a little while. Anvi amanu gandharvar gitavaditra yutakai adrishya tata chapeshu swastri yutapati smara. Cupid, the master of many heavenly women, followed by groups of Gandharvas playing musical instruments and singing, appeared, holding his bow and arrow. Cupid appeared holding his bow and arrow. Sārārtha-darśinī. Cupid came with persons who had groups of instrument players and singers. The suffix kai has a sense of possessing. The sage realized their presence somewhat in his mind and began to tremble. This can be understood from later verses. Verse 29 mentions he was like a suddenly awakened snake, and the word darshita, violated in verse 30, indicates awareness of their attack. Hutvagnim samupasinam Tadrishu shakra kinkara militaksham duradharsham murtimantam ivanalam. These servants of Indra saw the sage sitting in meditation with closed eyes, having just offered his prescribed oblations into the sacrificial fire. He seemed invincible, like fire personified. Sārārtha-darśinī. They saw the sage sitting, samupasinam. Nanritustasya puruta striyoto gayaka jago mridanga vina panavar vadyam chakrur manoramam. The women danced before the sage, the celestial singers sang, and the attractive instruments played with drums, strings, and cymbals. Sandadhestram dhanushi kama pancha mukam tada madhur manorajastoka indra bhritya vyakampayam. While greed personified Spring and other servants of Indra all tried to agitate Markandeya's mind, Cupid fixed his 5-headed arrow on his bow. Sārārtha-darśinī. The 5 heads of the arrow are drying up. The 5 heads of the arrow are drying up, bewilderment, agitation, suffering, and exhilaration. Kridantya punjikastalya kandukaistana goravat vrisham udvigna madhyaya kesha visrangsita sraja itastato brahmadrishtesh chalantya anukandukam vayurjaharatarvasaha shukshmam trutitameekalam. While Punjika Stali, with waist bent over by the weights of her breasts, garlands falling from her hair, was playing with some balls, glancing here and there, and was chasing a ball, the wind blew at her fine dress with its loose belt. Visasarja tadabanam matvatam swajitam smara sarvam tatra bhavam mogham anishasya yatodhyama. Cupid, thinking he had conquered the sage, then shot his arrow. But all these attempts proved futile, just like the useless endeavors of a person with bad luck. Sārārtha-darśinī. Anishasya means of a person with bad fortune. Just checking looks like everything's been running okay. Cool. Ta itam apakurvanto munistate jasamune dahyamana nivavritu prabodhyahim ivarbhaka. O learned Shonak, while Cupid and his followers tried to harm the sage, they became burned by his potency. Thus they desisted just like children who have aroused a sleeping snake. Sārārtha-darśinī. They became frightened. Sorry, I kind of fell asleep while I was reading that. While Cupid and his followers tried to harm the sage, they became burned with his potency. He burned them to ashes, huh? No, did they just get burnt? I don't know. Thus they desisted just like children who have aroused a sleeping snake. Okay, so they just got burned. Sārārtha-darśinī. They became frightened, thinking, we do not know what will happen now. From the example of the snake, it is understood that the sage first became angry on the arousal of lust, and then he controlled both lust and anger. Etindranucharar Brahman Darshitopi Mahamune Yannagar Ahama Bhavam Na Tachchitram Mahatsudhi. O Brahmana, though the followers of Indra had impudently attacked the saintly Markandeya, he did not succumb to false ego. For great souls, such tolerance is not surprising. Sārārtha-darśinī. Ahama means of ahankar. Drishtva nistejasam kamam saganam bhagavan swarat shutvanu bhavam brahmarsher vismayam samagat param. The mighty King Indra, seeing the impotence of Cupid and his followers, and hearing of the power of the great sage, he became very astonished. Sārārtha-darśinī. Swarat means Indra. Tasyaivam yunjatas chitram. Tasyaivam yunjatas chittam tapasvadhyaya samyamai anugrahaya virasin nara narayano hari. While Markandeya was fixing his mind through penance, Vedic study, and observance of regulative principles, the Supreme Lord Nara Narayan appeared before the sage by his mercy. Tau Shukla Krishno Navakanjalochano Chaturbhujo Rao Ravavalkalamburo Pavitra Pani Upavitakam Trivit Kamandalum Dandam Rijum Chavainavam Parmakshamalam Utajantumarjanam Vedam Chashakshat Tapa Eva Rupino Tapat Tadedvarna Pishangaro Chisha Prankshu Dadano Vibhudarshabarchito. One form was white and the other was black. They had 4 arms and eyes resembling the lotus petals. They wore garments of black deer skin and bark, along with the 3-stranded sacred thread. And they had pavitras of kusha grass on their hands. They carried the mendicant's water pot, straight bamboo staff, and lotus seed prayer beads, as well as the all-purifying Vedas in the symbolic form of bundles of dharma grass. The tall figures, austerity personified, flashing with yellow rays like lightning, were being worshipped by the foremost devatas. Sārārtha-darśinī. They wore the skin of the black deer and the bark for clothing, and a sacred thread of newly woven thread. And they wore a sacred thread of newly woven thread in 3 strands. They held water pots in their hands. They held the Vedas, which purify men. Some say this means they held Dharma, representing the Vedas. They were the personification of austerity, and they were all tall. Their yellow effulgence looked like flashing lightning. Devai Bhagavato Rupe Nara Narayana Vrishi Drishtotaya Dhare Nochar Nana Mangena Dandavat. Seeing these 2 sages, Nara and Narayan, forms of the Supreme Lord. So Nara and Narayan, the forms of the Supreme Lord. So having seen these forms of the Supreme Lord, Markandeya stood up with great respect. He offered them obeisances by falling down flat on the ground. Satat sandarshanananda nirvrita mindriyashraya Hrishtaroma purnaksho nasehetav udikshitum. Markandeya's body, mind, and senses became blissful on seeing them. His eyes filled with tears, and his hair stood on end. He could not gaze upon them. Sārārtha-darśinī. Nasehe means he could not. Jai Narayana Rishi ki jai. Uttaya pranjali prava Otsukyad ashlishan iva Namo namo iti shano Babhashe gadaksharan. Standing with his hands folded in supplication and his head bowed in humility, Markandeya, out of eagerness, imagined he was embracing the two lords. In a voice choked with ecstasy, he repeatedly said, I offer my humble obeisances. Sārārtha-darśinī. Prava means with humility. 1 second, how long have I been reading for? 40 minutes. Okay. Tayor asanamadaya padayor avinijyacha arhanena nulepena dupamalyar apujayat. He gave them sitting places and washed their feet, and then he worships them with presentations of arghya, sandalwood pulp, fragrant oils, incense, and flower garlands. Sukham asanamasino prasadabhimukho muni punar anamya padabhyam karishtabhidam abravit. Markandeya, once again bowing down at the lotus feet of those two most worshipable sages, who are sitting at ease, ready to bestow all mercy upon him, that Markandeya addressed them as follows. Shri Markandeya Uvacha. Just checking one thing. How many? Whatever. I just want to see how many verses are. 49. Shri Markandeya Uvacha Kim Varnayet Tava Vibho Yadudiritu Kim Varnayet Tava Vibho Yadudirnitosu Samspandate Tamanuvamana Indriyani Spandanti Vaitanubhritam Ajasarvayoscha Sasyapyatapi. Oh my god, I'm falling asleep. Swasyapyatapi bhajatam asibhava bandhu. Markandeya said, O Almighty Lord, how can I possibly describe you? You awaken the vital air, which then impels the mind, senses, and power of speech to act. This is true for all ordinary conditioned souls, and even Brahma and Shiva. So it is certainly true for me. Nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. Sārārtha-darśinī. By you, the life air is made to move, and the voice, mind, and senses. Shruti says, Shrotasya Shrotram. The Lord is the ear of the ear. That's Kena Upanishad 1.2. Vai means certainly. You enliven the senses not only of ordinary beings, but of Brahma and Shiva as well. What to speak of me? Like a friend, you are controlled by the love Like a friend, you are controlled by the love of those who worship you. You alone enable them to worship you by enlivening them. You enable them to worship you by enlivening their minds and senses. Yet you feel unable to repay the debt of their worship. you're unable to repay the debt of their worship and become indebted and controlled by their love. That is most astonishing. That is the greatness of your mercy. Beautiful. You feel unable to repay the debt of their worship and become indebted and controlled by their love. Murti ime bhagavato bhagavang strilokya che maya tapa viramaya chamritu jityay nama babharsha vitum anyatanur yatedam Shrishtva punar grasasit sarvam gun ivananabhi. Just as you appear in various other forms, you assume these two forms for the benefit of the three worlds, for removing suffering and for giving liberation. Having manifested these forms, you make them disappear, like a spider that produces a thread and then consumes it. Sārārtha-darśinī. Therefore, you appear in this world to allow us to worship you and to let yourself be controlled by the prema of your devotees with matured bhakti. But not only for this purpose do you appear, you come to protect the universe. That is explained in this verse. Mritu jityai means for giving liberation. Just as you assume various other forms like Matsya and Kurma, you now appear in these two forms. However, having accepted these forms, you then make them disappear, just as a spider produced and devours his web. This verse praises the greatness of the Lord's pastimes. Tasyavitu stira chare shitarangri mulam yadstamna karma gunarakala rajas prashanti yadvaistuvanti nimamanti ajatyadiksham dadyanti veda tadyani veda God dang it. Dhyayanti veda hridaya munayastaraptyai. Sorry. I worship the lotus feet of you, who are the protector and controller of all beings moving and non-moving, whose fixed devotees are not touched by karma, the material modes, or time, and whom the sages, with continuous silence, knowing the conclusion of the Vedas, they praise, respect, worship, and meditate upon him in order to maintain you. So the sages, knowing the conclusion of the Vedas, praise, respect, worship, and meditate upon you, right? There's a word missing. In order to attain you. Sārārtha-darśinī. I worship your lotus feet. The verb occurs in verse 44. The contamination of bad conduct arising from karma, the gunas, and time do not touch the devotees situated at your feet. This expresses the greatness of bhakti dedicated to the Lord. Actions, either pious or sinful, recent or ancient. Actions, either pious or sinful, recent or ancient, all these actions do not touch the devotee, just as water does not touch the lotus leaf. The plural verb is poetic license. The devotees, always silent, who know the conclusion of the Vedas, meditate on the Lord to attain him. Nānyam tabang grupaudnayad apavarga murte shemam janasya parito bhya isha vidma brahma bibhetya lamato dviparabda vidishna kalasya te kimuta tatkrita bhotikanam. O Lord, for people fearing samsara, I do not know auspiciousness other than the lotus feet of you, the form of liberation. Since even when Brahma, who lives for 2 praraddhas, even Brahma fears time, what to speak of the creatures created by him? Sārārtha-darśinī. I do not know any auspiciousness other than your lotus feet for persons fearing samsara. Since even Brahma fears time, what to speak of others created by Brahma fearing time? Oh, Krishna. I think I need to just do a couple push-ups, and that will wake me up. 1 second. Okay, there. Sorry about that, guys. I woke up really early this morning, so okay. I'm more awake now. That helped. Tadvaya bhajam yurit. Sorry. Oh God, that's such a difficult combination. A Y next to ri. Anyways, let's try it. Tadvaya bhajam rita. I can't do it. Tadvaya bhajam rita diyastava paramulam. Hitvedamatma chadik chatma guror parasya tehadya partamasaran antyam abhigyamatram vindeta te tarhi sarva manishit vindeta te tarhi sarva manishit tartam. Looks like there's a syllable missing. I worship the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the Guru of the Jiva, who has true knowledge. I worship the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the Guru of the Jiva, after I have given up the covering on the Atma, such as possessiveness of body and house, which are all useless, insignificant, and temporary. A person should attain you alone, who know the devotee's service, and he will attain all his desires. Sārārtha-darśinī. How long have we been reading? 49. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Sārārtha-darśinī. Rita Dhiya means the Lord who has true knowledge. Giving up the covering on the Atma, possessiveness of home and house, which is useless, insignificant, and temporary, I worship the lotus feet of you, who have true knowledge. One who worships you also attains you, you who know the service of the devotee. Then let those without material desire worship me. Let those with desires worship someone else. No. If someone attains you, he attains all desirable objects. Am I speaking too close into the mic? Hopefully it's not distorting. Sattvam rajastama iti shatavatma bandho maya stiti layo daya hetavosya lila dhrita yadapi sattva mayi prashantyay nanyendranam vyasana mohabhiyashchayabhyam. O Master of life forms, O friend of the Jiva, the causes of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. The causes of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe of all beings, including the devatas, are the 3 gunas made of Maya. Though you accept pastimes of sattva gun for auspiciousness, you do not accept rajas and tamas at all, since they produce pain, illusion, and fear for mankind. Sārārtha-darśinī. If a person has material desires, let him worship devatas. Worshipping them is worshipping me, since the devatas are my representatives. So, if the Lord says that, then the response is, O friend of the Jiva, O master of life forms, the causes of this universe made of men, animals, and devatas, like Indra and Chandra, are the 3 gunas, which are made of Maya. How will I attain you beyond Maya? By worshipping the effects of Maya, the devatas, who are all temporary. Though you accept sattva gun pastimes among all pastimes for auspiciousness, you do not accept the others, rajas and tamas actions, by which suffering, illusion, and fear arise. However, all three pastimes are made of Maya. Hey, I'm not tired anymore. Tasmataveha bhagavan atatavakanam shuklam tanum swadaitam kushala bhajanti yat satvata purusha rupam ushanti sattvam loko yato bhayamutatma sukam nachanyat. O Lord, therefore in this world the wise worship your pure form and the pure form of your devotee, and not the forms made of material gunas, since the devotees like Narad recognize your form as Shuddha Sattva, from which arises Vaikuntha, a place which has no fear of falling and is endowed with spiritual bliss. See that? No fear of falling from Vaikuntha. Sārārtha-darśinī. Therefore, the wise give up the impure forms of Indra and others made of Maya, and worship the Shuddha Sattva forms of the Lord and his devotees. Devotees like Narad recognize the form of Vishnu, which is Sattva. What type of Sattva is this? From this Lord arises Vaikuntha, with no fear of falling. There's fear of falling from Svarga, but there is fear of falling from Svarga. Because there's no fear of falling from Vaikuntha, there is spiritual happiness, not happiness from the results of karma. Therefore, it is Shuddha Sattva, not material Sattva. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushaya bhumne vishvaya vishvagurave paradaivataya Narayanaya rishaye cha narottamaya hamsaya samyata gire nigameshvaraya. I offer respects to the Supreme Lord, the Supreme, the all-pervading person, who assumes all forms in the universe, who teaches the universe, who is most worthy of worship, who is the sage Narayan and Nara, who is completely detached from worldly life, who is controlled in speech, and who teaches the Vedas. Sārārtha-darśinī. Though you have a form of a human, you are all-pervading, and you take the forms of animals, men, and devatas. The purpose of the Lord's appearance is described. You teach bhakti, jnana, and vairagya. Not only are you a teacher, but you are worthy of worship. You are most worthy of worship. You are most worthy of worship. You appear in two forms. You are the sage Narayan and the best of humans as a sage. You have given up all possessiveness. You remain with a vow of silence. However, you preach the Vedas. Even though you remain with a vow of silence, you preach the Vedas. 2 more verses. How are we doing on time? Okay, 55. Yang Vaina Veda Yang Vaina Veda Vitataksha Patar Brahmadhi Santam Svakeshva Sushuhridyapidrik Pateshu Tanmaya Vritamati Sau Eva Shakshad Adyastava Kila Gurur Upasadya Vedam. Persons with intelligence bewildered by deceptive sense perception cannot know you who are situated in their senses, life airs, and hearts. Persons whose intelligence is covered by Maya cannot even know you when you appear as an avatar within their vision. Even Brahma, who obtains the Vedas from you, the Guru of all beings, cannot know you. Sārārtha-darśinī. This verse explains that the Lord is difficult to realize. A person with bewildered intelligence caused by deceptive sense perception does not know the Lord situated as a controller in the heart, in the life air, and the senses. The person whose intelligence is covered by Maya does not know you who are present visibly, now as an avatar. What to speak of others? Even Brahma, though he obtains the Vedas from you who are the Guru of all beings, even Brahma does not know you. Okay, this is the last verse. Ya darshanam nigama atmaraha prakasham Muryanti yatra kavayo japara yatanta Tang sarvavada vishaya pratirupashilam Vande mahapurusham nigura bodham. Knowledge of the Lord is revealed in the Vedas, but indirectly. Even the great sages headed by Brahma, though endeavoring to understand the Lord, are bewildered about the Lord by studying the Vedas. They are bewildered about the Lord by studying the Vedas. I offer respects to the great Lord, who is conceived differently by various philosophies presented in the Vedas, whose real nature is hidden, who is understood only by himself. Sārārtha-darśinī. Though you are known by the Vedic scriptures, you are still difficult to understand. Knowledge of you is in the Vedas. That knowledge reveals you who are secret. Then the Lord might say, then those who study the Vedas can know me. The answer to that, the sages, the best of whom is Brahma, though they endeavor, they are bewildered concerning the nature of the Lord. Because the Vedas speak indirectly, they are bewildered about you as the only bewildered about you as the only object of knowledge. The reason is explained. The Lord has a form which is not the form. The Lord has a form which is not the form which becomes the subject of various philosophies, like Vivartavad described in the Vedas. Therefore, I offer respects to He whose real nature is hidden from understanding, hidden within himself. I offer respects to He whose real nature is hidden from understanding, hidden within himself. Thus ends the commentary on the 8th chapter of the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, for the pleasure of the devotees, in accordance with the previous acharyas. Alright, so tomorrow we will read chapter... not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. And also Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day. So, we'll read about Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit. The day after that, maybe we'll read this in like 3 or 4 days from now, because then the next day is Gundicha Mandir Marjan, and then the next day after that is Jagannath Rath Yatra, so it'd be nice to read about all these tithis. So, yeah, we'll continue in a few days. Alright, thank you so much for tolerating my... Today was extreme, my sleeping. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh my god, I have 36 seconds. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govana Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nugariya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Chai Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gora Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Avishya Bharati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radhakun Shamakun Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Alright. Thanks for tolerating my... Today I was like in a half dream state most of that reading. Thank you for, sticking through this all. And I'll see you tomorrow to read about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the day after that to read about Gundicha Mandir Marjan, and the day after that to read about Rath Yatra, And then we'll continue with